On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks offseason kicks off as soon as it begins. Are the Dallas Mavericks getting Zach LaVine? Are the Dallas Mavericks not interested in Rudy Gobert anymore? Plus, we hear from Nico Harrison about the Mavs offseason plans at exit interviews. Talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs. Let's go.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Engstead, media member and NBA channel manager from the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. You didn't think you could get rid of us that quick. We're back already talking offseason. Locked On Mavs is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can subscribe to the show. And the best way to help us grow is comment below. Start with this. Would you want Zach LaVine, even if it meant trading away Jalen Brunson? Let us know in the comment section below. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, and contributor at Mavs.com, the offseason oligarch, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
You know, we were talking about after the loss and, you know, all the interviews and stuff. We stayed up kind of late on Zoom after we recorded the pod, and we're like trying to plan out next week a little bit.
Yeah.
And like, man, how fast do we turn the page? You know, draft stuff. You know, we're excited about draft.
I was pushing for like, let's do a couple of season review episodes and like talk through the season because it's been so amazing. And then Mark Stein.
Yeah, like exit interviews, Mark Stein, and it's just like, all right, we're all here. We're here. It's the off season. Let the rumors, speculation, trade machine, screenshots, all the fun stuff. Let's go.
We are so ready for it. So this is what happened. As Mavs exit interviews were going down, Mark Stein dropped a piece talking about what's next for the Dallas Mavericks. What's next for Luka Doncic and this crew? How do they get, you know, another star and all that? And that the Dallas Mavericks are interested in Zach LaVine. Sources nonetheless maintain that one option already being weighed by the Dallas Mavericks, this is all via Mark Stein, is the prospect of joining the sign-and-trade bidding for Chicago Bulls' Zach LaVine, amid a growing belief around the league that LaVine, as he heads into free agency, was more interested in leaving Chicago than initially presumed. Isaac Harris, should the Mavericks be going after Zach LaVine?
Oh, man. There's so many layers to it, right? Like,
yeah,
even when you start entertaining, you know, going after a sign and trade for a guy, you know, for Dallas, I mean, if we want to assume, like I'm going to assume in this case, that the only way you'd have even a remote shot at Zach LaVine, if Zach LaVine wanted to come to Dallas,
right, and
if Dallas would even have a shot, it would have to include a Jalen Brunson sign and trade too. So, because I just don't think they have enough assets to get Zach LaVine.
You don't think it's like a Dinwiddie plus the first round pick that the Mavs have,
no,
plus like all that, like an amalgam of all that. Tim Hardaway Jr. maybe. Like I don't think that gets it done either.
No, I don't. So let's just say it has to include Brunson. Well, then you got to get Brunson to play ball. So how awkward is that? Of, hey, we want to bring you back.
It's been our number one priority.
But so how much would you sign to go to Chicago? Because we're kind of talking with them, you know, and so you risk that whole thing of like, it's the chicken, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, of who talks to who first. And then, you know, if you tell JB, okay, well, we're kind of talking with Brunson, we could get Zach LaVine, so we're kind of talking to Chicago. Would you be willing to go there? And then it's like, well, I'm an unrestricted guy, so I can go anywhere I want. So then, well, New York, you know, just clear up some cap, or, you know, let's assume they did. So I'm just gonna go sign with New York if you're trying to like sign and trade me right now, type of thing. So that's where it gets so tricky, especially in this situation, because I just don't think that they have a shot at LaVine unless Jalen Brunson's in that deal.
And Mark Stein also mentioned that Atlanta, Portland, and San Antonio, all of whom possess either the cap space or the trade pieces to more readily chase him, have already been mentioned as LaVine suitors. So those are teams: Atlanta, Portland, and San Antonio. They have young players, they have assets, they have draft picks that they can trade. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that those teams have that the Dallas Mavericks don't have to trade. And so, yeah, you're right. It would take a Jalen Brunson. So, but let's say just the player in and of himself. Like, Yeah, so, like sign us up for Zach LaVine next to Luka as the guy that is, Zach LaVine has become an incredible player. He's upped his game every single year. He played next to a guy in DeMar DeRozan. Now there was maybe some tension between those two as far as Zach LaVine wanting to be the main guy and DeRozan kind of taking over that spotlight. LaVine kind of had more of a tough year than he's had in the past as far as injuries and things like that. And so, what would Zach LaVine bring to the Dallas Mavericks if the Mavs did pull off that kind of sign and trade?
I want to reinforce your point real quick. Our friend of the pod, Jake Fisher, Bleacher Report, reported this back last week when talking about Zach LaVine's free agency. He put this in his piece. Go read the story. But he said, one specific note has been frequently repeated among league figures with knowledge of the situation. The fourth quarter brilliance that put DeRozan in MVP conversation often left LaVine watching from the corner as DeRozan isolated in the mid-post.
Does that sound familiar?
While Chicago was supposed to be LaVine's team, featuring new running mates for the Bulls' all-star centerpiece, LaVine was routinely rendered to a supplementary role alongside DeRozan. So, and he goes on just to say, like, hey, this is one of the reasons why some teams think that he is available in free agency, that he might not go back to Chicago, because that DeRozan kind of being in the shadow of DeRozan there in Chicago, especially in those fourth quarters, he wants to kind of flourish. He wants to have that ball in those times. So, but to go back, how would he fit in Dallas? He would be another guy next to Luka Doncic. He would be another scorer. He would be another slasher. He could get to the rim. He can create his own shot. Everything that we've talked about, having a perimeter guy alongside Luka, that, hey, when Luka sets on the bench, which they really won those minutes a lot in the Warriors series, except for this last game in Game 5 that Luka went to the bench and they just couldn't hold up at that point. But who's another guy that can score on the perimeter and create for himself? Zach LaVine can do that. He improved a lot since he went to this past year or so. I mean, talking about upping some of his numbers and just being more efficient. But yeah, I mean, he would theoretically fit as another scorer alongside Luka. I would have the questions. Those questions I had a couple years ago. I would have the question now, especially that, it's coming out of this Bull season that was successful at the beginning, but now the same questions is there. The same question I had back then is like, does he want to be, is he willing to take a back seat to a star? That is he willing not to be Batman? Is he willing to be a Robin? And if those reports are true that he was upset about being in the shadow of DeRozan, well, you're definitely going to be in the shadow of Luka in Dallas.
Here, I'll swing the other way here on that one. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, saying, okay, if he decides to come here, if he decides to come to Dallas, that means he knows I'm second, right? This Mavericks team, one of their big reasons for success this year was because everybody knew their role. Everybody knew how they fit. Jason Kidd, that was a huge thing for him, is how everybody fits in the pecking order. As soon as Spencer Dinwiddie came in, he knew it's Luka first, it's Brunson second, and then it's me, right? Like there was no questioning, where that was kind of a question for him in Washington. Like, where does he fit in the pecking order, the hierarchy? He probably knew that Beal was ahead of him, but then he thought that he was the next guy. And then how does that work? And so there was questions there in Washington with Spencer Dinwiddie. As soon as he got to Dallas, there was no questions. He knew exactly, like almost from day one when we first got to talk to him, that he knew where his place was in the offense, where Jason Kidd had slotted him. I think that would be the same with Zach LaVine too. So if he decided to come here, it would be in a sign and trade. He would have to agree to come here, and he would have to agree to be that second guy because he wants to take the next step. And I think having a guy come into your place that you had become like an all-star level player in, you had grown in, become like the guy for a while. All the media is talking about you, like building around you. How can we keep Zach? How can we keep Zach happy? All that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden this guy parachutes in and is like the talk of the town. He's doing stuff. He's having like these runs that no one but Wilt has done in NBA history. I can imagine that being pretty tough, right? To like almost come in and say like, hey, this is my house. How dare you come in to my house? Like, he's excited about it and happy that the team's winning, but like, man, I don't know if I want to, like, it would be tough to deal with that, like to have somebody come in like that. But so I think it would be a different mindset for him, but we don't know. And we only know what has been rumored, that he wanted to be, featured more, and he would be in the corner at some time. Jalen Brunson was in the corner a lot for the Dallas Mavericks when Luka had the ball. Now the Mavericks want to even out Luka's possessions. And so they would try to work more, with Zach LaVine, and you don't bring in a guy like Zach LaVine unless you want to feature him a little bit more. But
he would be the best player Luka's played with since he's been in the NBA.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, for sure.
He would. I mean, he's a 2-time All-Star. Yep. So if Zach LaVine is saying this offseason, I want to be a Dallas Maverick, then you're not going to close the door on it. I mean, you're looking at talent upgrade. We're going to talk coming up in the next segment. We'll talk about Mark Stein is Rudy's, the quote he had on Rudy Gobert. But then again, Nico's talking about adding a guy down low and rebounds. It's clear to me as they're talking about wanting to add depth. They're talking about interest in Zach LaVine. They want to add a center. They're in the talent upgrade business. Okay, shocking here.
Oh, let's go.
They just want to upgrade the roster. So that's why if Zach LaVine wants to play with Luka in Dallas, then you don't close that. You entertain it as far as you can and try to make that happen.
You don't mess with that. So we'll talk about that, what that means, and are the Mavericks out on Rudy Gobert? Talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about BetOnline. It's the best place to check out the odds and lines in sports. They already have Celtics Heat Game 6 already up. Heat at home. Isaac
Game
Harris.
7?
Is this Game 7 already for them?
Yep.
Yeah, Game 7, my bad. Game 7. Heat at home. Who's favored?
I'm going to say Heat by 2.
Celtics by 2.5 still. They're still feeling the Boston.
In Miami.
In Miami. Boston Celtics are still favored on BetOnline. So go check that out. Game 7. They have all kinds of other stuff too. They have some WNBA odds right now. Saturday. I think you'll probably hear this before that, but Las Vegas Aces are 2.5-point favorite against the Sky. They have WNBA odds. They have overseas basketball odds. I'm sure they'll have Eurobasket this summer. All kinds of stuff on BetOnline. Go check out the trends in action. It's BetOnline where the game starts. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. Now make your second listen after this. Locked On NBA Big Board with Rafael Barlow from DFW and NBA Draft Junkies. He has the NBA Big Board newsletter. Richard Stamen, aka Mavs Draft on Twitter, do a great job covering the draft from all angles. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. That's Locked On NBA Big Board. You can see it in the corner right there. Look at that. Look at that synergy. All right, Isaac Harris. We've been talking about Zach LaVine, his fit in Dallas. We'll have a lot more episodes about that in the future. I'm sure we'll be debating it for the next couple months here before free agency actually opens up. But Rudy Gobert was another rumor in this piece from Mark Stein. It's been, there's been actual rumors that, hey, the Mavericks are interested in Rudy Gobert. The Mavericks have been interested. That's been an ongoing thing throughout this season, especially after that series. There was some more talk about that. But according to Mark Stein, and we're going to do this probably every single day we talk about. There are only a couple people we trust with Dallas Mavericks news, and Mark Stein is still one of those people.
Yeah.
According to Mark Stein, despite long-running speculation that the Mavericks hope to trade for Rudy Gobert, I'm told that an all-out pursuit of Utah's all-star center and defensive anchor is unlikely. As much as Cuban and Nico Harrison have openly acknowledged a pressing need to bolster rim protection and rebounding, Dallas sees Zach LaVine as a sort of player who could fill other crucial needs with his ability to play both off the ball, off Luka Doncic as a long-range shooter and likewise collapse defenses by slashing to the basket to score. So Nico Harrison, you'll hear in a minute, says that the Mavericks should get a big man, but it doesn't look like it's Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I'm not ready to fully close that door either. And I'll just leave that at that. I think there's a very strategic reporting if Mark Stein saying they're not planning an all-out pursuit.
This is smokescreen season.
All the
time.
There's a difference.
There's reasons why all this stuff comes out.
Yeah, there's a difference between saying they're planning and they're going all in for Rudy Gobert this offseason, and then what Mark Stein's reporting doesn't negate them a month from now.
He said it's unlikely.
Well, Dallas and Utah is talking they're not willing to give up the whole every single asset that they have, or they're not going guns blazing right at the top. But I'm not closing the door on that quite yet.
You think they have a seat at the table for Rudy Gobert? Yeah, I kind of hear the same thing because it's I'm told an all-out pursuit of Utah's Rudy Gobert is unlikely. An all-out pursuit, that means he's not their first priority, or they want us to think that he's not their first priority so that the market goes down so that they don't have to offer as much or trade as much and all that. All this stuff comes out for a reason.
100%. Yeah. And, Tim McMahon was just on a podcast, a month ago. And yes, they had a deep playoff run, and could that have changed their mind completely and all of that? It very well could have. But he reported, so we can talk about that as far as like some real interest in Rudy Gobert from Dallas's side. And it's like what I was saying a while ago. It's like Dallas is, it was after the game. Mark Cuban's like, hey, we're looking at adding guys that are, Jason Kidd type of players. Nico wanting a big Zach LaVine interest. Like, we're going to hear, there's no huge takeaways over the past 24 hours of like, ooh, that's shocking. No, it's because they want to improve the roster. Like they want to add star level talent to this team. So I don't think these names are going to be the end of it either. We're going to see Dallas's name attached to a couple of other guys too, probably. So that's part of the business and where they're at right now as a team.
I think that could be shocking to some that were worried that, okay, well, they went to the Western Conference Finals. Do they think they're just going to run it back? Do they think that do the Mavericks think that they're just going to, okay, we just got to get one more like ancillary piece here and there? No, they're going big. Like they want to go and make the next big piece, get the next big piece next to Luka Doncic. They know they need to upgrade. And everything Nico Harrison said in exit interviews today led me to believe that. He said all the right things that I would want him to say in this. I was incredibly happy with the things that he said. Starting with this is Nico Harrison at exit interviews talking about what the Mavericks need to improve on. What the Mavericks, one of the Mavericks' biggest needs to improve over the offseason.
If you look back at the series, we lost some games on the boards, and I think that's important. Like we need to get somebody that can help us on the rebounds, be a rim protector. I think we need to figure that out for sure.
Okay, this quote I put on Twitter, and then it got put on Reddit, and I opened it's funny whenever you open Reddit, you see your name on there. I started scrolling through the comments, bad idea. And one of the comments in there was, didn't Locked On Mavs say over and over again that rebounds don't matter? And now Nico Harrison came in and said rebounds matter. So I'd like to tee it up for you right now to talk about what you mean by rebounds and this whole playoffs, and then Nico Harrison come in and say we lost games because of rebounds.
Well, one, we never said rebounds don't matter. We said it's not the end all tell all of when it's going to determine a game or not. One, we didn't even talk about that you were going to tee this up or not, but I just have this already on my notes, so it's kind of funny. They beat the Utah Jazz in a playoff series in the first round. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. And they had Rudy Gobert. They got out rebounded by 43 rebounds in that series.
In the whole series.
In the series. They beat the Suns in a 7-game series. If y'all remember that series, they got out rebounded by 54 total rebounds in that series, and they won that series. We didn't really hear a ton about the rebound stuff after those two series, right? We hear about it after the Warriors, in which we lost, in which we did get hurt on the boards. Like there's no way around that. Yeah. We got killed on the offensive boards by Kevon Looney. All of that to say is you can win playoff series when you lose the rebounding battle. We just saw it. They just won 2 playoff series and had their best playoff series win since 2011 against that Suns team by losing the rebounding battle by over 50 rebounds. Okay. So I feel validated in my point of it's not the end all tell all. It never meant that we don't have to improve our big man spot. It never meant that, hey, we can get better at rebounds. Like, yes, the center spot is something you have to go in this offseason saying, how can we improve it? Now, whether they spend $40 million of the cap in it and Rudy Gobert, or they spend, less than $10 million in it and get another guy in there in the center rotation that's just a bigger body than Dwight Powell that can help with rebound and stuff. That's what they got to figure out. But it was never that rebounds don't matter. It was just, it's not the end all tell all stat, because that thought and me diving into this and me being passionate about it came out of the Utah series when everybody's throwing out. I mean, it felt like every other game, Rudy Gobert, the Jazz, they're killing them on the boards. If they want a shot in this series, they got to win the rebounding battle. It's like, no, they don't. They don't. They can win this series and lose the rebounding battle. So it's not everything, but they have to improve it. They got to get better at it.
Yeah.
So there you go. Hope that proves something.
Yeah. And I was with you to the point where they can and could still win games in the playoffs while not winning the rebound battle with the bigs that they had. Now, coming into next season, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody so that you're not having to win on these other areas like 3-point shooting and win at the line and win in the turnover battle so dominantly that you have to dominate those other areas because you're getting killed in the rebounds? Like for sure, and they want to address that. And so they saw that in the Warriors series. They saw, and it's not just rebounding, right? Nico Harrison said, rim protection, need a big that can go out there and and can play and can defend the rim, that can defend in space a little bit, and like is Miles Turner and is like the type of player that the Mavericks would want to bring in that may be from the Dallas area, like right in their backyard. I know that in the past the Mavericks haven't gone after players that are in their backyard, but maybe Miles Turner is that guy.
Hey, let me give you something else real quick. These were team rebounding leaders per game in the regular season. Grizzlies, Bucks, Jazz, Knicks. Knicks were 4th in the league in rebounds as a team in the regular season. Shout out to the Knicks season. You know who's 6th in the regular season as far as rebounds per game? The Oklahoma City Thunder. They're having fun in the draft lottery right now. So, you can keep on going down. Warriors, Raptors, Spurs, Suns, Pelicans. You know who was the 3rd highest rebounding team in the playoffs this year? As far as per game, the New Orleans Pelicans. Okay. And CJ McCollum's been drinking wine for about a month now. So I go to show once again that rebounding isn't everything. It doesn't determine everything, but you got to be, the Heat were 22nd in the league in rebounds per game in the regular season. And they're 1 win away from the NBA finals.
Yeah.
Dallas was 24th in the league and they were 3 wins away from the NBA finals. So it's not everything, but you can get better at it. And they should this offseason.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So coming up, let's hear from Nico Harrison some more about the style of play. We heard from Mark Cuban yesterday that the Mavericks want to add these Jason Kidd type players. Did Nico Harrison agree with him? We'll hear about that and more coming up. But before we do, we'll tell you about that coming up. we don't have a live read. We didn't have a. I thought we had a read. I didn't have a read.
Incredible.
Professional podcaster Nick Engstead right here.
You ever done this before?
Wait, what was the number you tweeted out today? Isn't it like 1,000?
How many episodes?
Yeah.
This is like 1,392 we've done.
And not the first time I've totally gone into a break thinking I had a read and not having one. So Mark Cuban the other day talked about a Jason Kidd style player. It was one of the first times we've heard that phrase, and it was really interesting to me because it maybe informs the type of players they're looking for in the offseason. But did Nico Harrison agree with that? Let's hear from him here.
Yeah, I think it's adaptable. I don't really have a vision of a style of play that I would want to play. I think it all starts with Luka, obviously, and then how do you build in players around it that complement him. And so I think the style of play a lot of times is going to be dictated by the people that we're playing against. And really good teams are versatile. They can play different styles of play. If you only play one style of play, then people take that away. Then where do you go to? So I don't really believe in the hey, this is our style of play. I want versatility. I want to be able to match up with everybody.
I love that. As a look to the offseason. And another reason why you should be encouraged thinking, okay, well, is this team just saying, okay, well, we found our identity. We found the one thing we can do is just bomb threes and to defend in space and defend on the perimeter. And we're just going to double, triple down on that. No, Nico Harrison wants to be versatile, wants to add a big to this roster so the Mavericks can have other options, so they can go against these different teams. They went against 2 teams in the playoffs in one that had bigs that they could remove from the series, basically in Gobert and then in Ayton with the Suns, right? They basically took them out of the series for the most part. And then they could just deal with the rest of it. And like everybody else can equal out. And if they take out that big, then all of a sudden they have an advantage. And then they won those series. Then they went against the Warriors, and the Warriors didn't have that issue because Kevon Looney could not get played off the floor because he was incredibly good defending in space and at the rim. And so, and their offense is just so different than what those other 2 teams were playing. And so for Nico Harrison to come in and say that hey, no, we want to still be versatile. We want to still try different ways to play, and it's all centered around Luka. Love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you got to have the versatility at the, this is a throwback back when I did a story with Donnie Nelson a few years ago when talking about the center position. And he told me, he's like, you kind of view it like the bullpen approach. You got to have these fives and these different type of roles and I think it's even proven now that Dallas just didn't have the rebounding big, banger to go against, Kevon Looney, but they had to stretch five in a maxi type, because when you look at even the rebounds for that game 5, it's kind of skewed because they had to just go small the whole time because they need to shoot threes. So if they even had a Rudy Gobert on the roster and it's a game 5, it's elimination, and you're down by like 20, guess who's probably not going to be on the floor? Rudy Gobert, because you need shooters out there. Like, you got to catch up. You got to shoot threes. So that's why the belief. Well, that's why the belief and even the reporting from Mark Stein saying they would rather go the cheaper route when it comes to the center spot, because if you can have multiple guys, then you don't feel as bad when you have to bench a Russell Westbrook, a guy who's making $40 million, because, hey, you got to play a certain style at the end of the game, or you got to match somebody else's style. So that, I thought one of the quotes, do you have the All-Star quote pulled up from Nico, as far as, do we have that clip?
Getting All-Stars?
Well, as far as him saying, and this is where you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt of, like, Mark Stein reporting, hey, Dallas is looking for that other star. And then Nico pulls out the quote.
I have this
of the bunch of all-stars sitting.
Yeah.
About,
he was asked, are you looking to go after and bring in some more all-stars, bring in all-stars to this Dallas Mavericks roster?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just about having all-stars. I mean, there's tons of teams, and I'm not even going to waste my time mentioning names, that have a bunch of all-stars, and they're sitting at home watching us play. So, yeah, you need to keep upgrading the roster, but I don't think it's about just getting a bunch of all-stars. I think it's about getting people that fit together, and starting with Luka, people that can fit around him. And I think that's more important than just getting all-stars.
Yeah. How many of these teams now have we seen where they just grab some all-stars, like the Nets or the Clippers, and it didn't work for them because that was kind of all that they had, or those all-stars broke down because you put all your chips into one basket, and then all of a sudden if it breaks down for you, then all of a sudden you have no other options.
Yeah. I freaking love that quote. My favorite quote came from Theo, but that's like my second favorite quote of, there's teams with the all-stars sitting at home watching us play. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's go. Because this is the stage that these Mavs are at now. That if you ask, if we went 2 years ago and we talked about all-stars, and it's like, at that point, you're like, hey, we just need to add talent, right? Like, just whoever, it's not much about fit then. It's like, just throw the talent people out there, and like, let's just get good players, basically.
The fit,
but now,
fit matters.
Now they're at the stage of, we've been to a conference finals that I don't think, and y'all disagree with me, I'm sure you will in the comments, but I don't think we're at the stage of just whatever talent wants to come here, you just welcome them all in. I think you do have to consider fit now. You do have to consider, hey, how are you going to fit alongside Luka Doncic? And how are you going to fit in this offense and with this team and with this system and everything? So I absolutely love that quote from Nico.
Now, lots of all-stars can fit next to Luka Doncic, right? They're not just they're not narrowing their field to where it's only like 3 guys in the league, right? Like, pretty much anybody can play next to Luka. So
exactly.
And if they think Zach LaVine is one of those guys, then how many more players in the NBA can fit that, right? He's not like a super unique player that there's only one like him, right? They're not trying to bring in like a Ben Simmons, like that's the only guy that can fit next to Luka, right? That's just not the case. So, but yeah, I love that he's talked about that with all stars, and I love that's not his thought, right? His thought is not like, okay, we got to do whatever it takes to bring in somebody. We got to do whatever it takes to bring in another talent. It's that it has to fit. It has to be the right thing. It has to be the right type of guy, and not just grab all stars and throw away what they've already built here. I think that's awesome. So he's talked about wanting to get a big man, the rumor about Zach LaVine, the rumor about Rudy Gobert, and he was asked if his relationships with other agents around the league, like we talked all about Nico Harrison's relationships with other players and teams and stuff, if that is going to help them get players this offseason. And see if you hear anything in this.
I don't know that it helps you a lot. I think we'll be able to have conversations with people that we want to have with for sure. But in this league, like, you can be friends with whoever you want, but are they going to come to us for the money that we have for them? Like, I don't think so. I don't see that happening. But at the same time, when there's a player that we want, and we have the money to afford him, we're gonna have a seat at the table for sure.
Hey! He dropped it again.
Dallas is gonna get a seat at the table.
He dropped it again. A seat at the table. Isaac, what do you think that means? They're gonna get a seat at the table.
I think that means we need to take a drink right now.
Oh, I think my cup is empty, but I will.
No, I love that quote from. I mean, Nico is just throwing out some great quotes, at X interviews, but just the fact of like, hey, yeah, it's cool that I'm friends with people, and I was hired because I'm friends with people, but we gotta have cap. So, I think that was his subtle way of saying, hey, don't hold any of this against me this offseason because my friendships isn't going to make people come here for $5. Okay. They still want to get paid. And and it's just a reminder that, we'll talk a lot about, Mavs cap stuff and money stuff, in the coming weeks, but Dallas just doesn't have a lot of flexibility this offseason. And, after they re-signed Jalen Brunson and just, they're going to be in the luxury tax and all this stuff. And it's like, it's not like they're walking into the offseason with a bunch of expirings.
Yeah.
They could get up to like 30 million in cap. And it's like all this flexibility. There's not really a blank canvas this summer.
There's not even like ways that they could creatively get there to even cap space at all, right? Because of all the contracts they have and all that, because Luka's big extension kicks in this year, and that's the reason why, right? That's the reason why you go over the cap, is because you draft players or you sign players to smaller deals, and then they get better, and then you sign them to big deals, and now all of a sudden the Mavs will be in the tax because of their players that they've signed.
And you can't, and even for Jalen Brunson in his deal, I detailed earlier about how tricky it gets with sign and trade stuff. I feel like that's going to be such a popular thing for Mavs fans to throw out there over the next, month is, ooh, we could get this player via sign and trade. And it's like, man, there's so many difficult layers, because you're asking two different parties, two different organizations to get on the same page.
Whenever you're more like four, because it's each player and each team.
Yeah. And Brunson's not restricted, right? Like if DeAndre Ayton's situation, he's restricted. So like, Jalen Brunson could just sign, you make him mad, or you're like, oh, well, they don't fully want me. Well, I'll go to Detroit and New York for $20 million a year. So that's where it just gets so tricky that I personally don't see any world in which there's a sign and trade thing unless just all the stars align in some big thing, because ultimately I think Dallas wants JB back, but also, and I think JB wants to be here, but also it's just so hard to do something like that. So anyway.
We've talked about Nico Harrison and all the things that he said and how he was on point with a lot of the things that he said. Improving as a big, improving talent overall, getting better, wanting to keep adding and not just sit on their heels. Jason Kidd, we're not going to share any of his clips right now, but I thought Jason Kidd also had some really good things to say at exit interviews where he said, hey, next year, we're going to go into next year with way high expectations. People are going to expect us to be back in the Western Conference Finals. And he was like, that's what you guys do. He was talking to the media and like joking around that media sets those expectations. And he said, we're going to come in with the mentality of, hey, we're going to be the hunted now. And so many players said that. I think Dinwiddie said that. I think Brunson said that. A couple other players. I think they just have that mentality now that, okay, now we have to prove it, right? Now we have to prove that, okay, we did belong there. It wasn't just a fluke that we made it to the Western Conference Finals. And I just liked the overall vibe and the overall messaging coming out of the Mavericks. I thought was really good overall, from front office to coaching and then players.
Yeah. All across the board. Love the whole vibe of everybody at exit interviews.
And the vibes were immaculate with some of the players too. Some really funny stuff. I don't think we got anything like good as far as talking points from players, but we got some really fun stuff. So we're going to do a bonus episode in a little bit here talking about some of the fun stuff. So go check that out as well. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.